Hey, Twitch! Welcome to Wendy. I can't stand it when I hear myself.
Wendy's. Welcome to Wendy's.
Welcome to Wendy's. Can I take your order? Hello, Twitch. Welcome to Wednesday. Now, here's your host of Dustin's Vinyl, Dustin Chafin.
Yeah. Wild thing. Yeah. Woo. What's up? What's up, Anthony? Welcome to Wendy's.
Well, yeah, I'll have a McFlurry. Oh, wait, no, that's...
You want a Baconator? You want a 5-piece?
You still doing the chili?
The chili's good. You know, I heard that, the chili's supposed to be weird, though. It's like they make it I don't know. I always hated when they do the 5-piece chicken. I was like, that's so cheap, you know? Just do 6. Like, why don't you do 5 pieces?
Yeah, what are they doing with that extra piece?
I don't know. That's just some corporate shit I don't like. It's kind of like the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. You know what I mean? Just some corporate
nonsense.
Corporate nonsense. How you been, man? Did you have a good week? You rock and roll? I feel like I saw you yesterday.
Yeah. It's been a good week. I finally finished mixing my new album, so that was kind of
there's a natural plug there. So what's
that was really what I did this week. It was kind of hanging over my head for a long time.
Let's talk about it. What's your album? What you got there?
It's called I Can't Believe It's Not Better.
Hilarious.
And so it's a combination of songs that I sing and then like musical pieces with kind of some jokes, spoken word jokes that come from my stand-up routine.
Nice.
So
very cool, guys. So get Anthony's album. It could be better, but who cares? Buy it anyway.
It's out on Friday. So
Friday, very cool. And you have a vinyl copy as well, right? You have that? Of course you do. Look at that. Look at
I have it next to me.
You're always ready for the plug. I like it.
It's a clear vinyl, 7-inch.
How many songs are on there?
4 songs from the 4 out of the 11 that are on the album. I didn't print the artwork yet. There's going to be artwork with it.
You mean artwork? Oh, okay. So if you need help, I got an app.
Yeah, I got an app too.
I can do artwork with an app. Well, it's an exciting day. This is June, which is, we decided I got to choose we're doing stand-up comedy albums, which is very exciting for me because I feel like a lot of vinyl shows and clubs, nobody ever mentions the stand-up comedy. It's always about the music and everything. And I feel, stand-up comedy albums are a big part of this culture. It's like a lot of, stand-up comics. That's kind of where they got their start was through the albums, Bill Cosby, Red Fox, Bob Newhart, all these guys were pumping out a whole lot of, comedy albums back in the day. And, Red Fox has he probably has about 50 of them, these party albums. And, he was the Dolomite. I don't know if you did you see that movie on Netflix?
I think so.
Yeah, it was about a guy who was kind of a comic and he, kind of created his own, kind of like you. He's like a renegade, independent guy and created his own art and put it on albums and vinyl and just kind of create a fan base off of that. So it was kind of the first grassroots. So I feel stand-up comics have always kind of, used albums to kind of, to get a fan base and stuff like that. So it was like before there was Twitter or any of that shit, you put an album out, you sold it, and that's how you got the buzz off that. And it's very exciting. So we're also covering live concert albums, which you're always fun. I always like putting on a concert album just so I can hear applause. You know what I mean? Because I'm so addicted to hearing crowds, especially during COVID. It's like you just put on a live album, you're like, oh, there's a crowd. Okay. All right, that's what it sounds like. That's what it sounds like. Because my crowds sound exactly like Aerosmith's crowds. So
yeah, when I do a stand-up show, it sounds like Kiss Alive.
It does, right?
Bump up they raise the volume and of the crowd. They
really do. And so today's going to be exciting. We're going to talk about prominent stand-up comedian and then a couple of live albums and that and whatnot. And we try to do a question every week. I put it on Twitter. I don't know if anybody saw it, but basically it was kind of dueling the two arts and saying which is more socially relevant, comedy, stand-up comedy or music. because, and you can't really say both because I kind of want to know where you lean. And I'm gonna, this is definitely a tough question to throw out to people because, I feel like early stand up, it was music. I feel like music was kind of, except for people like Lenny Bruce and Dick Gregory, there were people that were making a kind of more commentary on society. But then music, it seems like when Vietnam came around, I feel like music was this social commentary. The lyrics and, were really about kind of anti-war, and then the Beatles. Everybody was doing all kinds of stuff to kind of, be relevant and talking about the issues and stuff. And so I would say music, the first half of the world. And then the second half, I feel stand-up comedy kind of came in there, with the George Carlins and, people, Richard Pryor's, people where they were making commentary on black and white issues and, presidents and things. And so, and I feel now music, it's kind of hit or miss when it comes to kind of, commentary. I feel hip hop actually is probably making more commentary than any sort of other music these days. I feel like hip hop is probably the last of it, where it's kind of like commenting on the police brutality and things like that. Yeah. So that's my long-winded kind of all over the place answer. But how do you feel about it, Anthony? What's your take on that?
I also think it's music. And George Carlin would be kind of, if I was going to defend comedy, I would use, there's a handful of people like George Carlin, I think, that are socially relevant and things like that. But music has more replay value, I think, in general over jokes, because you can only hear jokes so many times. Even comedy albums that I love, I haven't listened to as much as music albums that I love. And I think the other part of it is that you can listen to music in a language you don't understand and still enjoy it. And you can't really do that. You can still feel some of what was intended.
It's kind of hard with stand-up. I mean, I've performed in front of a lot of crowds that didn't speak English. And let me tell you, nobody was connecting at all. Yeah, it's interesting. And then, and today, we're bringing in, a very controversial comedian, and we're going to do a little documentary that we put together. And, it's Sam Kinison, and it's interesting because, I had to kind of turn it down a little because I live in LA and I didn't, I got neighbors and I forgot about the content. I was like, whoa, hey, that's very 1988.
Yeah.
And, so it's interesting how some commentary is very dated. But so we're going to show you this documentary. This is a little thing Anthony and I put together. He did most of the work. I got the comics to comment on it and get the videos. And so we did this together, and we hope you like it. And then we're going to kind of go into the show. So here we go. This is, we'll call it Screaming Sam. I don't know. We'll call it something.
I should have put that as the title.
So you could play that documentary of kind of comics on, New York City comics, how they feel about Sam Kinison.
For me, Sam Kinison represents one of the greatest comedy influences in my entire life. As a young man, I loved stand-up comedy, but when I saw Sam, I felt for the first time in my life that there was some place where I could be loud, and it would be accepted, and it would actually be praised and part of my art.
I feel like I listened to Sam Kinison's Have You Seen Me Lately a million times. Oh! And I was just so attracted to his vulnerability on the one hand, and then his anger, and then of course the yelling, which so close to my heart.
I read a book once that talked about stand-up comedians, and it said that the great stand-up comedians like Groucho Marx, they had a funny walk, they talked funny, they moved funny, their content was funny, and they were different than just the comedians that just sort of stood still behind a microphone. Well, Sam, he was definitely unique in all those ways.
When I first saw Sam Kinison, I was actually in college, and I remember thinking, this guy screams a lot and he's going straight to hell, because I came from a very religious upbringing. I'm Greek Orthodox.
And then I realized that we shared a background. The strange religious upbringing with preacher fathers and stuff like that. That was really what cemented the connection. And after that, that was pretty much all I wanted to do.
A lot of people think that Sam Kinison screamed throughout his entire show. That's absolutely not true. In my opinion, Sam was great at modulating. He really, if you remember, opened his show smiling, giggling. He was almost cute. He was like, he had that little giggle. A lot of people say to me, Sam, why don't you like women? Why are you so angry at women? I love women. I love women. Sam, why don't you make fun of men more? Why don't you pick more, say what's wrong about men? Because a man never broke my heart, that's why.
I became a comic, and his act looks tame compared to mine. In fact, if we were in Dante's Inferno, I would be in the nucleus of hell, and he would actually be a couple of levels above me.
Sam Kinison was an OG, but overall not a very good person, apparently. I heard some awful stories about his background. But before I knew that, I always thought he was amazing, groundbreaking, angry, dirty, funny. Dropped off after the first hour.
And for some reason, I feel like every comic has a line that sticks in your head. And I don't know why this is it for me with Sam Kinison. But anytime somebody says the word marriage, all I can hear is Sam Kinison going, I was married for 2 fucking years.
You can still go see him. He's playing a lot of casinos around and stuff. Oh, there's not him anymore. There's a guy that pretends to be him that looks exactly like him. Do you know what Kinison? I can't do the yell. Fuck this thing. This is silly.
One of the first times I was at Dangerfields in New York City, I was doing a show and I told a joke, and 180 out of 220 people got up and walked out because they didn't like me or what I said. I said, I better tell the owner, Tony, Rodney Dangerfield's partner. Tony came in late. He didn't see the show. I said, Tony, I walked most of the room. He must have thought I was bragging. He calmly looked at me and said, Steve, that's nothing. When Sam Kinison was first here, he walked the entire room. Somebody in the audience asked him, Sam, why are you wearing a long raincoat indoors at a comedy club? And Sam said, because I have a rifle underneath my coat. Tony said they got up and ran out. They ran, they didn't walk. And of course, Tony and Rodney believed in Sam and put him on HBO, and the rest is history. Ah!
Yeah. Nice job. Nice editing, Anthony. That was beautiful.
Oh, thanks.
That was great. Yeah,
we
very
should do a full-length documentary about it.
We might. They've been a few out there, maybe, but we'll do our own. We don't care. We'll it's been done. We'll do it better. That's our motto.
Why not?
All right, let's do the show. Let's bring in the rest of the show, the crew. Go ahead and get started. Wow thing. Oh yeah. Welcome to Dustin's Vinyl. I'm gonna bring in Jeffrey, Paul, and Adam Holmes. Yeah. A couple of wild things themselves. What's up, guys?
What is up, folks?
That was cool, right?
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh, finally, we got a thumbs up from Jeff. That's huge. He just gets on our production work and our acting this time.
You got one right. This was really
got
good.
one right. Shut up. I'll show you how I got one right. I'm doing the album at the top. Okay. But that was fun. It was cool, just kind of asking comedians. It was interesting who replied or who didn't. And, it's a lot of things were said that were kind of interesting, like Aaron Berg, is so funny because he's very Sam Kinison to me. And, it's like without Sam Kinison, he doesn't exist. And so it's just like interesting that, and essentially what he said, he was like, basically he fell off the first hour or whatever, which I don't agree with that. I do think the drugs kind of, took a few albums off, maybe after kind of the later stuff is a little rough. But anyway, we're going to talk about Sam Kinison today. This is a phenomenal album. The Sam Kinison, Have You Seen Me Lately? It's an interesting thing. And if you don't know much about Sam Kinison, originally his background he was a Pentecostal preacher His family was into the ministry. Peoria, Illinois is where he comes from, which is the same place Richard Pryor was born and raised. And so they have that kind of connection to it. I think it's in the water out there. And so he was kind of an unsuccessful preacher. He was the guy that kind of would start these rivals of Pentecostals. He didn't do very well, but he'd always get laughs. And it was kind of these things where, you would just like say something, and then like to save it, he would throw in a joke or something and get a laughter. And so he decided he was going to pursue stand-up comedy. Everybody thought he was crazy. He wound up in Houston at a workshop in Houston, a comedy club out there, and started this group with a couple of other comedians called the Comedy Outlaws. And it was Bill Hicks, Ron Shaw, Carl LeBove, Jimmy Pineapple. It was these guys that were kind of, doing kind of edgy material that maybe was a little off the mainstream, in comedy in Texas. And so he was doing that, and he kind of got a little bit of success. And he moved to Los Angeles and started working the door at the Comedy Store. And that's where he started kind of getting into comedy. And Mitzi Shore, the owner, would only put him on late shows. And so he started his own late show, the Midnight Sam Show, and he would do this late show at the Comedy Store. And then as he was doing the show, it was so outrageous, everybody started kind of buzzing about it. Then all these kind of heavy metal guys would be in the audience. So it'd be like Vince Neil and, guys from, just Guns N' Roses, Slash, all these rock guys started kind of embracing him. And that's kind of when he started kind of getting this following of kind of just this rock guy. It was this comic that was yelling and doing all this kind of crazy, outrageous stuff. And so he's embraced by the rock community. And then he went to Dangerfields, and, Rodney Dangerfield really embraced him, and Rodney put him on the Young Comedian special on HBO. And that's where he kind of popped. And after that, it was like everybody in the world was talking about, his bits and his acts and doing the Primal Scream and all that stuff. And so it was just kind of this whirlwind thing where he just kind of was in the right place and had this act that I felt was kind of what the world of stand-up comedy needed at the time, because it was very kind of brick wall, kind of Jerry Seinfeld type comedy. And then this guy comes in guns a-blazing and doing something that nobody had ever seen before, and it was a different kind of comedy. And this album is really something. It's the second album. It's in 1988, Warner Brothers, the first album, got a lot of success. So there was a lot of hype up to this album, and Louder Than Hell, I believe, was the first one. And so, this album, like I said, it's a little difficult to listen to because two things happen when I listen to this album. The first thing is I realize I'm still a Sam Kinison fan. He put me back into when I was 16 years old and I heard the album for the first time. But then he made me realize I'm become a better person because some of the things he's talking about, I'm a little offended by. So it took a lot out of me to be like, okay, maybe I shouldn't be laughing so much at some of this stuff, but you can't help yourself. That's when you know somebody's funny, when you laugh at shit that's probably not supposed to be funny. And so I'm going to go down this for the few tracks, and then we'll all get into it as a discussion. But the first track on this is Rock Against Drugs. And this is definitely a social commentary on kind of the rock star drug culture at the time. It was a lot of Just Say No, Ronald Reagan stuff. It was a lot of people were kind of like, sex, drugs, and rock and roll was kind of a right people were fighting for because of the administrations and things that were happening. And so, Sam was taking it a little too far, which is what he always did, and so there's a lot of things on here that when you hear it now, you're like, yeah, bro, I don't think drinking and driving is a good idea. Like, it's like you might want to take it back a notch. And so, but it's, it's still funny, and whatever. And then Rubber Love, which is all about, kind of not wearing condoms. And it's the idea of somebody just making a group full of men scream in an arena like, we don't like rubbers. It's a little unsettling. And there's a lot of misinformation about his AIDS-ology, what he, but,
yes. To say the
double
least.
the bags, bang the monkey, the language is, it's rough, you're just not used to hearing it. I mean, Jeff's from Staten Island, he still hears it, but most people don't really hear this stuff. And then it starts to get good. And he starts the Robo Pope, Mother Mary, Jesus, the Miracle, K. Heart. Anytime that Sam would go into religious material is when he shined. because I felt like because of his background, being a preacher, that's when he could really kind of tap into the hypocrisy of religion. He was there, he preached it, he knew the Bible. So anything, whenever he mentioned God or Jesus or anything like that, that's when it was always this pristine material. It was this material that stood out. So if you, any Sam, that's what they should do. They should release a Sam Kinison religious album of all the religious material, because that stuff is always spot on. It's so good. And then, you know, and then he does Buddies, which is, you know, that line that Leah was saying, Leah Bonham, a very funny comic, when she was saying, you know, married for 2 fucking years. And the thing is with Sam, I know Anthony can relate to this. You know, we all have that girl in our life that screwed us over, that broke our heart. In Anthony's case, owes him money. I got a girl that she was a comedian, and she called all the clubs and said I was an asshole. Like, I've just dated crazy people. And it's like, you know, so I get that, you know, and a lot of people don't understand why he was so, you know, against it. It wasn't that he was against women. It was just, he had been brutalized by women and it broke his heart. And so it was like this thing that kind of came out of him. So, and then, you know, and also with Buddies, he talks about kind of the bro party culture and how guys get drunk and do crazy shit. And so, because that was a time in the 80s, people were doing that stuff and it was good stuff. And then Lesbians Are Our Friends, which is a fun track. And believe it or not, this is actually an insightful track. And there's some tenderness to women and stuff. And it's kind of interesting. And then Pocket Toys, Sexual Diaries, you know, Artificial Vagina, which I think today, if he was alive, he would definitely be the spokesman for the Fleshlight. I think that would. And his voice technique was amazing. A lot of people don't realize how great he was just listening to him. And that's the thing, is like, I love Demetri Martin, but after a while I'm like, okay, I need some intonation, feel something, you know what I mean? Whereas Kinison, there was all kinds of emotions in the comedy, and then the voices, he could do accents and things, and he was very talented, very underused with, you know, I think his voiceover stuff. And the butt in the Bible, again, using a religious reference, so it's very funny. He used anal sex in the Garden of Eden. And
classic.
Yeah, classic. And then Parties with the Dead is one of my favorite bits because he does it on his first special. And that's a homosexual, a necrophiliac bit where, you know, everybody's got one of those. And, you know, and what's great about this bit, what makes it so great is that, you know, the idea that you're finally coming to grips with death. And then you're like, oh no, even after death, you're getting in the ass. And so it's like this whole thing is just the way he wraps it around is so, so funny. And then to end the whole album with Wild Thing, which was originally popularized by the Trogs, which I did a little wormhole on them. Very talented band, written by Chip Taylor. And here's this thing is this album never charted, but when Kinison did this parody, it was nominated for a Grammy. So I think that's what's crazy about this whole thing. And then what's also
kind of answers your question.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Was it nominated for a Grammy as comedy, or was it nominated as a song?
I think as a comedy, it's whatever category it was, like a song, I guess, a comedy song. I don't know. It might have been like a comedy song. I'm sure that year Weird Al was mad. But,
who wound up winning it? Do you remember who wound up winning the Grammy that year?
I don't, but
probably Weird Al.
But I do remember who was in this video, and this video was amazing. It was just like, you know, you got Bon Jovi, you got Aerosmith, Joe Perry, Guns N' Roses, Tommy Lee, Motley Crue, CeCe DeVille, nice. You know, Rudy Sarzo, Quiet Riot, Billy Idol. I mean, it was everybody was in this thing. Rodney opens it up, like it's, you know, and that's when it kind of like, you know, really just exploded for Kinison. You know, this video was everywhere. And then this song was kind of this huge song of the 80s. And so, yeah. And it's also the only parody I've ever really liked. I feel like I do like, you know, Weird Al and stuff, but he's not bringing emotion to his songs. Whereas I feel like Kinison kind of put that emotion of his act into this song about a woman breaking his heart. So anyway, that's my spiel on the Have You Seen Me Lately, Sam Kinison. There we go, guys.
Nice.
I did it. I did work. I did research.
You did a lot of research.
I'm Jeff. I'm like Jeff now. I'm excited. Here we go. All right, guys. So talk to me. What do we got?
I loved it. I mean, this brought me back down memory lane, man. This reminds me of in the 80s, and the two comedy albums I listened to all the time was I listened to Kinison and I listened to Dice. And you know, and this
Born Enemies too, by the way.
Yeah, and this was to me, this was like alpha male comedy. It was aggressive. It was it's like the tracks that really stood out to me was the Pope. You know,
the Pope,
you know, and like I hadn't heard this stuff in years, and then you put it on, and it takes you right back to that place. The rub is Leah. When I feel the exact same way that she does when I hear marriage, and I keep thinking the same thing. Yeah, I've been married for 2 fucking years, and I love, like you said, the use of his voice. You can't go wrong with Sam. This is great.
I mean, I think you could go wrong a little bit with the content, you know. And
you got to remember, I'm Staten Island, so
it's Staten Island, but you also love really Broadway shows. You also love Broadway shows.
Shut up.
Yeah,
his Staten Island friends can't love.
Yeah, I think the youth would have a hard time with this album. I think I don't know if anybody on Twitch is listened to the album or have any sort of views on Sam Kinison. We would love to hear what you have to think about Sam's act, this album, anything, But yeah, I mean it's good. But it's just like Eddie Murphy had the same problem. You listen to Delirious, and the first 5 minutes of Delirious is like
it's the opening.
It's
at least Sam Kinison waited till track 2, but it was equally as hard to listen to. Pretty offensive.
But that was the time.
Today,
that was the time in the 80s.
And just like Guns N' Roses, like we were talking last time about Guns N' Roses, where I feel like some of their stuff was a little dated and their references and stuff. And so yeah, it's dated. It doesn't hold up because of kind of the hate and whatnot. And the thing is,
because of the hate and
doesn't
whatnot.
always last.
the age jokes was like you listen to that now and you're like, oof, that is like that's a road nobody's traveling. But I'm listening to this in the gym and I'm fucking laughing about it. It's still funny.
Yeah, but you ain't gonna listen on speakerphone. You know what I mean? Like,
I'm listening with my headphones on.
Secret hate.
You don't want to crank it up.
I don't want to get thrown out of the gym.
Yeah, I mean, but it is interesting though, because I felt the same way. I love Sam, and I have a forgiving place for Sam, and I also understand that also cocaine makes you a little hateful sometimes too. Cocaine makes you not the most sensitive of people, so But I just Adam, what did you think about old Sammy and his album?
I mean, I enjoyed it. This is the first time I've heard it, and I remember Sam Kinison. I was a bit too young for. I mean, I must have been 11 when this album came out, and listening to it, I was thinking, I was like, what would I have thought of this if I'd heard it when I was 11? And once Robo Pope kicked in, that's when I think the whole album really took off.
I agree. That's when Sam really gets good. It's like, because the album before that, he talks about Jesus on the crucifix and the thing. And like, it's just such good stuff. And some of his other social commentary was good on like world hunger and stuff. But this album has good stuff on it, but it does. Yeah. It starts a little late, but Anthony, what's Kinison to you in this album? Like, how'd you respond to it?
When I was a kid, I remember seeing him on TV and stuff. He was on like Married with Children, and he was I guess that was kind of the height of the popularity. And so I always knew who he was, and I saw like clips and stuff. I've seen some of his specials, I guess, over the years. And I thought it was fine. Just the main thing I remember is the yell, which I think is what everybody remembers, and that he was a preacher and stuff. I think if that second track wasn't on the album, I think I probably would have enjoyed the whole thing a lot more.
Oh, come on, that's great. That second track.
I could have done without the whole thing.
Here's what's a weird thing, and I hate to blaspheme this poor man after he's dead, but this is what entertainment people do. And I was Aaron Berg, he says those things like he's an awful person, which I mean, I haven't found a comic yet that doesn't have a few bad things about him. So, but apparently, here's the deal. So Richard Pryor Jr. comes out with a book and says that they had an affair, him and Sam Kinison. And so the irony of the whole thing is that he writes this book and then that he's with Sam Kinison. And then, and that's the sad part. When somebody dies, you're going to say that. Come on, dude. You should have said that when he was alive. But it's like, so that's kind of what Aaron was referring to. And you don't believe, whatever. It's in a book. I mean,
is that what he's talking about?
Yeah, that's what he's talking about. And so at that, and like Carla Bove was his best friend, and he knocked up his wife, which we all been there. But
he just passed.
Yeah, he just passed. Yeah. Rest in peace. He was a great comic. He was his opener for many years, and apparently they had some. But that's the thing. It was a drug culture, and people were just doing weird, wild stuff. I'm not judging him that. The only reason I bring up the affair thing with Richard Pryor is just because he was so hard on gay people. So it's like if that is true, that's hilarious to me.
Yeah, that's typically how it goes. We're repressing something, and
but it was jokes. It was jokes. It was comedy. It was funny. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, it was. And I agree with you. Like I said, man, 10 years ago, there's not a bigger Sam Kinison fan than me. It's just sometimes, I feel as an artist, you have to curb a little bit of your influence because it affects people and how they think about things. And so, just like politicians have to be careful. And I think, sometimes even though it's art, it's, I'm just saying I get why people would be sensitive to it. I can listen.
It's in the time. Now you probably remember better than I would, but do you think that at the time were people taken back and offended? I mean, today, if you release this, you would get blasted.
Yeah.
But were people just like,
No, it was all those guys were getting in trouble. Sam was getting in trouble. People were protesting his shows. Dice Clay got canceled from hosting stuff. Like, so yeah, it was happening. A lot of the culture wasn't a cancel culture like it is now, but it was, people were getting in trouble. And religious people were coming at Sam, gay people, it was like a whole thing. Sure. All that stuff was happening at the time.
There also was no social media. So at that time as well. Yeah.
If Kurt Loder wasn't talking about it, we didn't know.
And also a lot of groups didn't have as much of a voice at that time either. So maybe the same amount of people were upset about it, but those kinds of dudes weren't hearing about it.
Yeah, but like I was saying before, he representing this thing because a lot of women shit on men, and a lot of women tore men's lives apart. And so he kind of was this prophet to those guys, And then one thing I will say about this, being somebody that was kind of in a Jesus cult myself, and then when I got out of it, I was kind of a maniac. And so once I let go of my religious ties, that's when my drinking was heavy. That's when I was womanizing. That's when I was doing hard drugs. So I get it because there's something about it. When you leave that, you kind of want to just go all in with life. And so I understand this energy of Sam Kinison. And then I think the thing is, and his act was about that too. So that's kind of why I was like, drink and drive, go fuck yourself. And hey, don't wear a condom. Like, I get it. Cause I was doing that. I was drinking and driving. I was in New York City, but I was drinking in Subway and passing out train.
But isn't that comedy? Like no one is going to say, oh, I'm going to drink and drive because Sam says. It's just an exaggeration on, it being something funny,
I get absolutely. And I don't think comics are the ones that should be held to this high thing.
Exactly.
I don't think but unfortunately, we are part of the mainstream. And I think it's a different time now because of all the media you were talking about, because there is more access to it. So I think back then it was just an album. So to hear it, you had to go to the store and buy the album, or somebody had the album. Now anything can be shared and anything can be, looked up. So I think it's a little different now. I think we need to watch our P's and Q's a little more now, just because of the access,
Yeah, I guess that's kind of true, but I just love the unfilteredness, I guess, if that's even a word, of Kinison. And the comics like that, like the aforementioned Eddie Murphy and and dice. I don't know, as a guy who played sports and lived in New York City, I mean, that was the type of comedy that I gravitated to. And you know what? If it's not for you, there's a million other comics to listen to.
I agree with you 100%. You know, Eddie Murphy apologized recently about all his albums.
He shouldn't have.
I don't think he should have either, but I'm just saying that he did. So I'm just, like he was upset that, people were not happy about it or whatever. No, I mean, comedy is a weird thing. It's like, do we have any comments, Adam? Anybody come in on this?
Yeah, we got let's see, we got David Needle says Kinison was a top 10 stand-up. Stuff is as funny today as was then. Not all 80s
absolutely.
Material holds up.
All 80s material?
Oh, not all 80s material holds up.
Okay.
Dave is a big 80s guy. Okay. Dave loves 80s stuff.
Yeah, I love 80s stuff too. And I'm just, and a lot, like, I don't know. I feel the first album, it kind of is a little, I process it a little better than this one, but it's great. It's definitely a good album. And Kinison, there was nobody like him. And he turned comedy into kind of this rock thing. And I always say Patrice O'Neill, Bill Burr, they're just a poor man, Sam Kinison. It's like they don't exist without this guy. It's like, especially Patrice O'Neill, which, nobody, I mean, he was basically taking what Sam did and kept going with it. His whole, and people were like, I can't believe what he said about women. And I was like, yeah, listen to some Sam and get back. It's like, so yeah, he inspired a lot of people, including myself. Like, I love Sam, something about like my religious material I do, like, all the intricate stuff. It's the stuff that I think is good. I feel like I got, inspired by Sam, because I feel like he took risks with the material before people were talking about it. Because that's the thing. A lot of people were doing puppets and magic and shit in the 80s. It was, Gallagher was huge. We talked about him last time. So it's
Gallagher,
like
Carrot Top.
Yeah, all that. Carrot Top won Best Comedian Award back in the American.
And Star Search, right?
Yeah, they used to have an award show where it was like the American Comedian Awards, and Carrot Top beat out Bill Hicks. And like, I swear to you, this is a real thing. And so, like, Bill Hicks was just livid, and he couldn't believe that Carrot Top beat him. And I was like, well, what country do you think we live in, Bill?
Yeah, it's safe. It's safe. It doesn't. It's not offensive. Hey, but I mean,
I think Bill Hicks kind of took the Kinison thing and kind of made it better. I feel like Hicks was kind of the more of the artist of the time, because he got more caught up in the writing. Whereas Kinison, the later stuff was pretty sloppy. It was like doing coke and getting a telephone and calling somebody's ex, parading chicks around on leashes, playing just full covers. Like he was just playing Back to Black and stuff.
Well, that's being a rock star. Look at Aerosmith.
Not being a rock star. I mean,
70s stuff, and then they come out with Night in the Ruts.
I understand, but it was. I'm just saying, the cocaine's a hell of a drug, and so after a while, it just became, because I really wish that there was more material like his religious stuff, Yeah. Sam has some of them. Sam has some of the top 5 bits of all time. The World Hunger bit is the best. You know what this is? It's sand. What is it? You know what it's going to be? Sand. And like, that's top 5 of all time. And so he has bits like that. But I feel like he got a little too caught up in the partying and less in kind of the writing, towards the end there. And but he had a great run. He was huge. He made a lot of money. And then, and the irony too is that he died by getting hit by a drunk driver after
he was becoming sober.
Well, he was sober. Sober and a drunk driver. So
I didn't know that. I thought he was. I thought he was.
That's how
drunk.
he died. No. Like, he got sober, and then a fucking drunk driver hit him.
That was like wasn't that like on a Saturday morning or something? Was driving from LA to Vegas. When I heard that, when that came down on, I think on MTV News, I just remember, when Kurt Loder came, either that or Tabitha Soren. Okay.
Oh yeah, Tabitha Soren.
Right. Remember the redhead? You would break that news, and I just remember like my heart just like hurting. It's like, because it was so ironic, and like the guy, because you rooted for him, you wanted him to get his shit together. And he was on that path, and this is how they take him away from him.
Yeah, it's a weird one. And I think he was in a Corvette, and it was like a whole thing. I don't trust Corvettes. It's a bad car to crash into.
It's all fiberglass.
Exactly.
If he had been in an SUV, he'd be a lot.
In Staten Island, if you didn't have a Corvette or a Camaro, okay, you a pussy. You need a real good death car.
It really is. I grew up in one. I have scoliosis. I was in the back of one. I talked about that. I was 5 years in the back of a Corvette. Curve in my back. Anybody, any other stuff about Sam Kinison from the Twitchers? If not, we're going to go to the live stuff.
Yeah, we got Burns Brightly says, I remember Artie Lang basically saying in a podcast that some people are rebels and then there are outlaws. And Kinison was a straight up crazy outlaw.
Yeah, he was, man. He's the Billy the Kid of our time, for sure. He didn't give a shit, man. And, you know, and I'm not trying to take away from his comedy by being socially conscious of it. I just think that, you know, because when it came out, it was just like it blew us all away. But he didn't care. There was no rules with him. And also, if you get a chance, watch his Sam Kinison's on Letterman. That one's really funny. He goes into the crowd. Nobody ever went into the crowd.
On
He
Letterman,
grabbed
no.
a guy, yelled in his face. Like a lot of his stuff is so funny. His Johnny Carson is really funny too, and he's clean. And that's a really good one. To see him clean is very interesting.
Yeah.
But
also, let's not forget how awesome he was in Back to School as the teacher.
he stole that whole movie.
Oh,
yeah. He was like, you know,
he wanted more.
Yeah, he was phenomenal. Yeah, and that's the thing. And I was reading in his book, Brother Sam, which is a great book. His brother was also his manager, Bill, wrote this book, and he talks about, you know, he was in the Three Amigos, and apparently he had a fight with like Steve Martin, or not Steve Martin, but somebody else, whoever was in
Chevy
the cast.
Chase?
Martin Short.
Martin Short, one of them, probably Chevy. Chevy's a dick, and so
Yeah, Chevy.
they cut him out of the movie. Like
He's not in it.
He shot a scene, and then they cut him out of the movie because apparently he was high on set. He was fucking with everybody.
They made him El Guapo.
They just cut him out. But like I was thinking, but yeah, I wish
They replaced him with Tig Notaro, I heard.
Ew. Come on. We're talking Sam Kinison here.
Innocent. All right, so we're going to go into the live band stuff. We don't have a whole lot of time, but we're going to get into it. So a very Kinison band. Jeff, why don't you take us into this real quick?
Okay, so we're going to talk about the 1978 release, Aerosmith Live Bootleg. And one of the reasons why I picked this album is because, one, this album is 100% real. It's put together from radio broadcasts. It's filled with like sloppy moments, mistakes, fireworks going off. If you put this record on, you could smell the weed in the air. It's a dirty record, man. It takes you back to 1978. They're not trying to say, hey, look, this is a full concert of us. They are taking pieces of them in the 70s when the band is, you know, ascending. So you got tracks recorded from 73, 77, 78. And it's like I said, it's not a landmark release where there wasn't a lot of fanfare when it came out, but it's real, it's dirty, it's raunchy. It's a great track listing. You got classics like the opener, Back in the Saddle. You got Sweet Emotion on it. You got Walk This Way, Dream On. And what I like about it is it represents itself as a real bootleg. You know, there's a hidden track like not Dream On. What is it? What's that song? Draw the Line. A great song. It comes in after Popcorn, which is a James Brown cover, and it's a hidden track. Like, so it's not even on the track listing. The 70s were great for live albums because you had AC/DC's If You Want Blood, you had David Bowie's Age, you had the band The Last Waltz. But in those albums, and a lot of albums, especially Kiss, albums had studio fixes and remixes and even overdubs. And here you're getting sloppy band performances. You know what it is? It's an honest representation of the band. If you listen to songs like Back in the Saddle, Toys in the Attic, Last Child, you could hear Steven straining on it. And again, what makes it like pop, what makes it great is like listening to Mama Kin, you are hearing the fireworks in the background. Now, I don't know if you guys have done this. Like I was just, because I was listening to this album and I started thinking about stories of like when I went to concerts like in the 70s and the 80s, like the late 70s, early 80s, like my first concerts. What we used to do, we used to bring firecrackers, like packs of firecrackers into the arena, and like you'd light them and then you throw them up in the air, hoping that they're going to go off before they hit the ground.
Different time, Jeffrey.
Listen, we did work. We would take you ever see like a smoke bomb, those little round smoke bombs? You light the smoke bomb, then you roll it down the aisle.
Oh my God. Get thrown out, man. That's crazy.
And now you would, but back in the day, it's like, I remember going to see Sabbath and with Van Halen opening. And I remember there were literal fires going on in the arena.
Wow.
It's a real different time.
7 people died. It was crazy.
And then we listened to some Dyson Kinison, laughed our asses off. No, but I mean, like even like my favorite track is on this. Like I think Train Kept It Rolling has to be a live song. And it's such a great jam song. It's such a great song. And you got the audience singing the cover, the chorus on it. The packaging of this album makes it look like a bootleg, like something like you would have bought at Bleecker Bob's, because that was where you went to get bootlegs. I mean, like the whole thing is great. There's a great version of Lord of the Thighs. There's jam versions of songs, hits, alternate versions. And the thing is, this album also influenced other musicians. Like, for instance, John Corabi actually put a band together and they would play clubs and they would play this album in its entirety. Okay. So like I said, it really captures Aerosmith in the peak of the 70s. I love it. It's also the other thing about this album. I don't know if you guys have the album or ever got the album, but if you do, at least back in the day, like, in the original pressing, the album would come with a poster. And I remember getting that poster. And that was one of the things, like, I think I took down like a Beatles poster to put the Aerosmith poster up. Like, okay, McCartney, your time has come. Past, and now it's Joe Perry and Tyler.
You put it over the poster? That's very
No, I took it down. I took the Beatles poster down, and now the the Aerosmith.
You know what the sad thing is? That Beatles poster is worth so much money. If you just held on to that Beatles poster.
You don't want to hear what he did to baseball cards.
Oh no.
Yeah. I was a dumb kid. I put them in the spokes of my bike, and
I could get Anthony.
mustaches.
Anthony took the tags off those Beanie Babies. That's what he did.
I mean, there's a reason why we're all on this show. So anyway, that's my pick of the week, doing live albums. I mean, again, I don't think you can pick a better live album. This was a great one.
Yeah, this was good. And, I feel like there's a handful of people that sound good live. I feel it's very difficult for bands to kind of, I feel like your best live type of music is actually not rock. I feel like blues and jazz sound a little better live, in my opinion, and even country, because there's not so much straining involved with the voices and things like that. And the solos don't have, there's so much, crazy shit that happens in a rock song. And I do like the vulnerability of this album, where it's like, it sounds like you're kind of at the show. And I'm not a gigantic Aerosmith fan. I think Sweet Emotion is probably a top, 10 rock song. But, it's a great song. Go ahead, keep playing. Yeah, I'm good.
I forgot.
There you go.
Something like that.
We love your imagination. We love them. We love them. It's part of the show.
I'm playing sloppy like they did on the
album. Exactly.
but that's the beauty of it.
Yeah, but it is. I do like that. But after that, I fall off a little bit. I feel the 90s was, it was all Aerosmith, but it was kind of those sappy kind of, love song things that were fun. But after the Armageddon soundtrack and shit,
See, that's what I'm saying. This to me is the best Aerosmith. Like when you look at, I think Van Halen, I like both versions of Van Halen. I think there are two versions of Aerosmith.
Sure,
I think
I
there's
agree.
70s blues inspired Van Halen. And then I think there becomes more like late 80s, early 90s pop Aerosmith.
Yeah, like a 70s Journey as compared to a later Journey or whatever. Yeah, I think it's definitely. Adam, what did you think about this album?
So for me, Aerosmith was more about the 90s albums like Get a Grip and kind of the the more ballad songs that they kind of headed towards. I really enjoyed this album. My feeling was that this is a perfect tailgate album. I wanted to just tailgate, just drink and listen to this. And I thought it was just a perfect live rock album.
Very cool. Anthony, could you smell the weed on this album?
Oh yeah, I got high. I got a contact high listening to it.
What did you think about this live album?
I like it. I mean, the track listing is great. It's
right.
I mean, that's 1978. They had all those hits by then, and then from 78 to like
and they had Come Together.
Yeah,
and Come Together is on it too. From the
from the nice cover. That wasn't bad. Yeah, that was nice.
It's taken from an awful movie. Worse than that Rock of Ages. It was taken from Sgt. Pepper's.
Oh, I never saw that.
Oh, but which one?
The Sgt. Pepper movie.
Oof.
With the Bee Gees and stuff.
Yeah,
we'll watch it and comment on it. We're gonna get into movies. We'll do that eventually later on. Next year we're gonna do movies, concert movies.
Right. But yeah, I liked it. It had so much of their essential hits from their catalog, and it was fun. It's sloppy, but not too sloppy. Which is the opposite of how I feel about the other album, if we have time to talk about it.
Yeah, let's get into the other album. So yeah, Aerosmith is great. We all love Aerosmith, and this is a cool album, Bootleg. So check that out, guys. And Adam, bring in the last album. We got a little extra time today. There's nobody behind us. Go ahead.
All right, so the next album is from the duo of Jack White and Meg White. It's the White Stripes, Under the Great Northern Lights, which is taken from it's pieced together from their 2000 summer tour, which was across Canada. It ended up being, which I didn't know, it ended up being their last tour, because at the end of this one, they did their Canada portion, they did a US leg, and then Meg was diagnosed with acute anxiety, and that pretty much ended the tour, and that was it for the White Stripes, at least live. But yeah, I mean, this is this it's kind of like a smorgasbord of, I mean, all of their albums. It's got some covers on it. Jolene.
I love that cover.
I Just Don't Know What to Do with Myself, the Dusty Springfield song. And, it's got a bunch, it's loaded with their hits too. It's got some, it's got Union Forever off of White Blood Cells, which is great, especially great live song. Blue Orchid, which is just amazing live. But I thought this was a great album, and just really listening to this made me want to just jump back into the White Stripes and go back through their discography.
Yeah, they're a cool band, man. They really, when I first heard, I didn't realize, when I didn't know anything about them, I was like, are you kidding me? It's two people? Like, This is great. Like, they're a band that's so fun to discover. I feel like they're great for kind of hard rock people to discover, because I think it expands your mind a little more to kind of, experimentation in music. And, I really like everything about kind of what they were doing. And this album is cool. You start with the bagpipes, and I was jealous I wasn't there. I mean, I smelled the shrooms. I didn't smell the weed.
Do you smell shrooms?
Have you ever eaten shrooms? They're very smelly.
Yeah.
Very smelly. Yeah, they grow out of cow shit. Let me tell you, they do smell.
They have kind of like a medicinal taste in your mouth.
They smell. You got to put them on pizza, though. That's the key. Put them on, we always did.
Some peanut butter.
Is that what you did? Peanut butter?
Peanut butter.
I didn't know those tricks.
Yeah, you learn a lot on the show. We're pitching this down to the History Channel. We're trying to get.
We're not just music. We'll tell you how to take shrooms. Also,
tell you how to really party, kids. You kids
next week we're doing crack.
We do a whole '90s music crack thing. But yeah, it's cool. Anybody want to comment in the Twitcher comments? Anybody about the White Stripes? Or has anybody seen the White Stripes live? Anybody out there in Twitch land? If not, any of you guys seen them live?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Yeah. How are they live? Were they great?
You know what? I was a bit disappointed. I saw them early on. I saw them touring with the Strokes. And I think it was such a short show. This was around White Blood Cells. So I think this was around 2000 or 2001. And
Strokes, man, that's a tough follow, man.
Yeah, and it was at Radio City. So it wasn't really at that point in time, it wasn't the right venue for them.
Okay. Yeah, I would rather see them
two-piece. That's hard. Yeah.
I mean, he can light up a stage, though. I mean,
Well, you ever hear stuff with what's that group called, the Racketeers?
Yeah.
I always say it wrong, but yeah, I mean, when he's in a group like that, or he's phenomenal.
When in Australia, I think it is, they're called the Saboteurs, because there was another band called the Raconteurs in Australia.
So Anthony, what's you could tell you were a little disappointed by this album.
I feel like the album. I guess it's not one show, but it feels like one show. If I was there, it might have been cool, but to listen to it as an album, it is one of the sloppiest live albums I've ever heard.
Why do you say that?
Well, going into it, I thought, because I'm a drummer too, so Meg White, I think it's interesting what she brought to the band, playing the way that she plays, but I thought she was going to be the problem. And she was actually much tighter than Jack White. I feel like his voice was really bad, and he didn't sound like he was trying with some of the guitar stuff. Like, I know he can play better than that. It sounded like he was tired. Like maybe it was recorded at the end of the tour or whatever. He sounds very strained. His voice is blown. It was hard to listen to.
Wow. I mean, I don't know if I disagree with you more, actually, because even if it was a song I didn't like, and the two songs ironically I didn't like the covers. I didn't like Jolene. I didn't like.
Really? In general,
yeah.
You heard it like the studio version.
Well, I've only heard this version. See, I love Blue Orchid. I think that was a highlight on it. Everything else I loved, and I loved his guitar playing. Listening to this again, this is a band I haven't paid a lot of attention to. And then, like, when I sat and listened to it, I was like, I fucking love his style of playing. He's a really good player. So I really enjoyed listening to this. I don't think the White Stripes make their bread and butter on his voice. I think it's more as a songwriter and as a guitarist. So I'm not going to be overly critical on his voice. Like I said, I thought Icky Stomp was great. I thought even changing up with what's that one from Napoleon Dynamite, Why Can't We Be Friends or something, right? Is that what it's called?
No, We Are Going to Be Friends.
We're going to be friends. Yeah, I thought that was great, and I thought it broke up the track listing a little bit, where it's overly a distorted guitar. But I thought this was really, really good. This was again another Adam great pull. I loved it.
Yeah, no, that's definitely a good pull. Did they get back together? Are they touring again eventually? I thought I heard that they were going to do it again.
I don't know.
I think it's just at this point, the closest you'll get to the White Stripes is just Jack White's solo stuff. It doesn't seem like Meg White has any interest in going back to the White Stripes.
Anthony, you should audition.
Yeah, I could do both at the same time. I could do the whole.
It's a little White Stripes, please.
This is such a great riff.
There you go.
Something like that.
Nice.
I got to practice it more, but it's as good as they played it on the album.
Good work.
Check out on YouTube, guys. There's a music thing with Jimmy Page, Jack White, and The Edge. And they talk about how they came up with the riffs for these songs. And, one of the great ones is how Page talked about how he came up with the riff for Kashmir. But Jack White's, how he came up with Seven Nation Army. That's a great, great story. Check it out on YouTube.
Yeah, I'll check that. Did the Edge ever become a good guitarist?
He's fine. He's fine.
No. Come on. Like realistically,
Yes.
Right. Well, hear me out. Back before they blew up, it was kind of a thing where he was kind of considered not a great guitarist. And because Clayton, they taught him how to play bass right when he joined the band, I heard. Like it was like a little bit of a, I don't know. That's just what I always heard. That was kind of the rumor when I was a kid that he wasn't a great guitarist. And the other guy, they just taught him how to play bass like 2 weeks before.
They said the same thing about Duran Duran too. And they all complained. They all became kind of a very accomplished, especially John Taylor became really a super great guitar player. No, the Edge is fine. Watch this thing on YouTube. You'll hear the Edge play. Very
cool. So I want to get back to some of the Twitchers. There was a couple of comments about the early question that we asked. Mason Nat says comedy because I listen to music for the beats, not the lyrics. It was a question about comedy and music being relevant. Mance Merpo, I agree. 90s and 60s, it was music. Since then, comedy. Just dropping. And then Burns Brightly. Today, comedy, because almost everyone on the planet naturally does at least a little comedy in their life. Not everyone can play music. In the future, when we're tech enhanced posthumans, who knows?
AI comedy.
AI. Very cool. This is a great show. I'm very excited. We're going to be doing a stand-up I'm going to pick a stand-up comic album for next week. Jeff's going to do some live. We're going to have a good time, and Adam as well. So please check us out. Anthony, you start playing a little White Stripes to take us out. So check out our Facebook page. Follow us on Instagram and all that fun stuff. Thank you, guys. That's the final. One of the best shows. Thank you, guys. We'll see you soon.
Bye, guys.
He's a comic, guys. So this is a big deal, and he can play. I'm a comic. I can't play like this. That's how music beats comedy.
Nicely done.
Nice. All right, guys. We'll see you.
Bye, Ray.
Bye, everybody.
Yeah.
God bless America.